Welcome to the Finding Purpose podcast. I'm Adam, and I'm truly grateful you're here. Before we get started, please give me about 30 seconds of your time. This podcast is a space for real conversations about growth, identity, resilience, and the moments that shape who we become. And beyond the conversations, I work closely with a small number of individuals through my private coaching experience called the Core Shift Program. It's designed for people who are ready to break old patterns, gain clarity, and realign their lives with who they truly are, not just who they've been conditioned to be. Spots are intentionally limited, so if something in these conversations resonate with you, you can learn more and apply by visiting my website, www.adamvohra.com. All right, let's get into today's conversation. Thanks for tuning into the Finding Purpose podcast. I'm Adam, and I appreciate you being here. Joining us virtually from Los Angeles, today's guest is Elizabeth Rosenberg, an entrepreneur, advisor, and thought leader, helping executives lead with greater authenticity. Elizabeth is the founder of the Good Advice Company, where she advises leaders and organizations on personal branding, communication strategy, thought leadership, and visibility. She's also the founder of Chief Spiritual Officer, a leadership platform focused on helping executives develop intuitive intelligence and other uniquely human skills in an increasingly AI-driven world. Known for her candor, clarity, and ability to bridge business strategy with deeper purpose, Elizabeth speaks globally on leadership, burnout, personal branding, and the role intuition plays in decision-making. This conversation is about authentic leadership, trusting your inner voice, and building a life and career aligned with who you truly are. Let's get into it. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And yeah, that first conversation is a good, I think, starter of what the rest of this conversation is going to sound.
Yeah. Normally, I start every conversation with just, what is your origin story?
That's a long story to tell. And I'm glad that you started with it, because that's actually how I start all of my personal branding sessions as well. Because I really believe that who we are as adults is kind of came from who we were as kids. So I'm fifth generation Californian. I am a twin. I grew up in Los Angeles, and I've kind of always been interested in entertainment and sports and the arts. And it was kind of inevitable that I was going to be a PR person. I was always kind of the spokesperson and the mediator of our family and friends. I've had the opportunity to work for several different kind of industries. I started in 2001, which was a terrible time to kind of launch your career into the world, as a kind of PR coordinator in the entertainment sector. And then from there, I got a chance to work on Brand Jordan and travel with a copy of the Declaration of Independence and work at Epic Records. And I'm one of those people that definitely hasn't stayed in one thing for a very long time. I like kind of the spice of life. And then I moved into advertising and was the director of communications for Apple's ad agency, and launched Shot on iPhone, music, and AirPods, and TV, and all of that great stuff into the world. And then moved over to another agency where I got to work on amazing clients like the NFL and Starbucks and eBay and all the big things. And on March 2nd of 2020, I quit my job and had planned to travel and do all the fun things that I think that I had really, really wanted to at that time. And then the world closed down. And I think that that time for me was a lot of time of personal and professional growth. And now here I am today. I have my own consultancy, and I'm an intuitive medium, and out proud authentically as myself in the world.
Listen, I love that. A lot of my listeners actually are based out here, I think, in the East Coast. So what were some, key pillars and milestones that you can look back on regarding your upbringing that really shaped who you were, or who you are now?
Yeah. It's funny because I our birth was very important when I look back on kind of like what made me who I am. We're fraternal twins, and when we were born, um, my sister had kind of a medical event, and I did not. And and we kind of like switched personalities when we were toddlers. I was very kind of more timid. And then as I got older, I was more again like the spokesperson for the two of us. So it's weird because I think that we don't ever really think about like how we entered the world as being really indicative of who we are.
Mhm.
But that I think played a really big role in my life. Um, I started having migraines when I was 4 years old. And thankfully I had a mom who had migraines, my poor mom, but she knew what I was experiencing. So I also think that I've had a career and a life of kind of chronic pain, and that has really dictated a lot of who I am. That I we talked a little bit about it um, in our private conversation, but I had also experienced an event, like a burnout event, when I was working in advertising, where I had a migraine that was so bad I lost all my motor skills and ended up in the emergency room. And from there, I years and years later, I ended up writing an op-ed about it. And I just don't think enough people talk about burnout in a way that is actually helpful.
Yeah.
So I talk about burnout a lot, and I think that dictated a lot of my life. And then I've also been fired and laid off. So I also think that there is this misnomer that successful people only have a trail of successes in their life. And I, within like 2 years, was both fired and laid off, and was like, oh, like it is devastating, but it's also that thing that like, you know, you really dig deep and figure out what it is that you want to do and how am I going to be successful. And for me, it was right around the time of the recession, of the 2008, 2009 recession. And that led me to my first kind of entrepreneurial, real entrepreneurial experience. So I really believe that everything kind of happens for a reason, or there's a lesson that you're supposed to learn from everything. And then it depends on, how what you do with that.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, I totally agree with you because a lot of my journey has been really identifying the major turning points in my life
Hmm.
that really changed the trajectory of where I was going to go. And had they not been there, I probably wouldn't be where I am. And also for me, it was acknowledging moments in my life that could have been major turning points and not acting. And that also in itself being a turning point, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, but one of the things that you shared is that you've always kind of been the spokesperson. That's always been a role that you've felt comfortable in.
Yeah.
I'd like to talk a lot about that because I think that attributes to the leadership roles that you have talked about and the work you do in leadership now.
Yeah.
And let's talk about the importance of using your voice.
I want to start off by saying that I don't think that everyone is supposed to be on stage. I just don't. I think that there's so much that we can do and so many ways that we can use our voice in a positive way in smaller versions. I think being a guest on a podcast versus being a podcast host is a great example, right? Or speaking within your small group at your company or within your community versus having to do a TED talk. Now, I think there's a pro and a con for both, but I don't necessarily think that everyone needs to be Oprah, right? Um, I also think that there is this balance that we're all constantly trying to figure out of what are the things that I want to say? What are the things that I feel are important to say and that I kind of need to say out in the world? And what are the things that people are actually going to hear? Because a lot of the time we say things and the way that they are then heard are not necessarily what was our intention, right? Is not how we were picturing it to get out into the world.
Mm.
So I think as a communications person and someone who is in PR, so much of my job has been key messaging and figuring out exactly like, okay, if this is how this happens, like what is then the risk management of all the other options of how this could be received? And then what are we going to do with that information? So it was actually very weird for me to step into a place where I was speaking and I wasn't necessarily teaching other people how to speak and helping them to be the best version of themselves in the world, because I don't necessarily have somebody doing that for me.
Mm.
So there are a lot of times where I say something, I'm like, I wish I hadn't said that. Like, I wish I didn't say it that way. Or, and I think a podcast is a great example because it is in essence a live conversation, right? There is still
Yeah.
editing that's happening, but we're still having this conversation in real time. And sometimes things just come out and you're like, that's not necessarily how I wanted it to come out and be said. But I also feel like we have so much human experience and we have so much life experience that when we can share those relatable stories, those are the ones that always make the most impact. And whether you're helping one person or you're helping thousands of people, I think you always need to think about what is that one life that I'm going to influence in a positive way? And then how is that one person then going to influence another person? So I like to think of it more as like a ripple effect versus like we all need to be screaming into to the world about how everybody could be better. Because
No,
that's not necessarily true, right?
yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And I also think that there is a journey of finding your voice, right? And I think a lot of that has to do with how comfortable you are being your truest and vulnerable self. And when you get to that place where you are completely comfortable talking about some of the most pivotal moments that may have brought you certain negative emotions, or you may not be so proud of, or you may even attribute a little bit of shame to it, then you're really able to find your voice in a way that also enables you to bring the better voice out in others, right?
Yeah. I mean, I always think that our failures are actually the best lessons for everyone because there's actual humanity there. Like there's a vulnerability, there's an ability for people to relate to everything that you've gone through. But if you're constantly just standing on stage, you're constantly screaming into the ether about how successful you are and how great you are, it's just not relatable. It's aspiring, right? But it's not necessarily relatable. So it is interesting because when I first told that burnout story, that was the first time that I felt like I was very publicly vulnerable about something that had happened to me and had a lot of kind of embarrassment and shame around it because to be honest, I so much of it I did to myself. And I know a lot of your journey is similar, right? Is a little self-inflicted. And when you maybe not a little, um, but when we really start to share those stories, I think that's when you can also like help other people see their truth as well.
Yeah.
And there's something really that I think that's human connection at its best.
Yeah, I mean, I love what you said about like the self-infliction, and yeah, much of my story was self-inflicted, but you know, a lot of it was also me just resorting to what was comfortable, right?
Yeah.
And I think when you continuously do that, you know, alluding to um, you and you know hitting that wall with burnout, um, can you walk my audience through those moments when you know you're burning yourself out and you hit that wall?
Yeah. I felt like I was at the most successful point in my life at that point. I was working for an amazing brand. I was finally kind of like in the room, you know, I was invited to the table. I loved my job too. So I think that people think that you can only burn out when you hate what you're doing. I loved what I was doing. I really, really genuinely really like what I do. I'm very grateful for that. I was having a lot of physical symptoms, like sleep was hard. I was probably working like 80 hours a week too. It was not helpful. Um, and I was getting a lot more migraines than I normally do. But like this specific instance, a migraine can come on very, very quickly. Like you can go from 0 to 20 and like, I mean, it can be quite immediate. And I was like, I'm like, I gotta get out of here. Like I'm gonna throw up. I really don't feel good. I just kind of like escaped. And part of that day was like a meeting had gone very badly. And I have now through therapy and all of the things have realized that when I get a really, really, really bad migraine, it's part of me punishing myself to remove myself from the situation, which that was an enlightening experience where I'm like, oh my God, I'm doing this to myself. This is really bad. Um, And then I was driving and, like exactly what you do when you're in your 30s and you're having a meltdown. I called my mother and she's like, you need to get to the hospital. You need to pull over. Like, I don't, there's something wrong with you. Because I was slurring my words and I wasn't recognizing that I was doing it. And all of a sudden I just couldn't talk anymore. So thankfully I think I was just on autopilot. I was really close to the hospital. And by the time I got to the hospital, I pulled in, I fell out of the car.
Mm.
People helped kind of like drag me in, and they either thought that I was having a stroke or that I had overdosed on drugs. So at this point I'm covered in vomit. I'm sweating. Like, it was like a whole thing. I was an out of body experience. And they're screaming at me, asking me what I had taken. And I'm in my brain, I'm like, I can tell you what's happening, but nothing would come out of my mouth. And then I went into shock. And then by the time they were like, there's no drugs in your system, I had calmed down enough to be able to tell them, I think I'm having a migraine. And it was like, oh. And then a couple hours later, I was fine. They sent me home on my way, and I got right back on my computer to 300 and something emails, and was so embarrassed that I had missed the whole day of work and went back to work.
Wow. I mean,
It was so dumb. I look at this and I'm like, what? I can't believe I did that.
well, it's so funny that you say that, because I can relate to that moment in a moment of my journey when, I was in the doctor's office and the doctor told me that like my pancreas was gonna explode if I like continued to drink, right? And I got back in my car and reached for the nearest bottle and drove home. And I think because it really comes down to just reaching back for what makes us feel comfortable. How
Yeah.
were you able, or when was that moment when you were just like, hey, listen, I got to pause and I got to check myself and I need to do something different?
Well, of course, then afterwards, I was like, I must have like a brain tumor or something. So then you go to like all the doctors and you do all the things. I had a CT scan and I tried to figure out, and they're like, there's nothing wrong. And I think when you are sick or you're experiencing chronic pain, and when someone says to you, there's nothing wrong with you, there's like nothing more disheartening, because you're like, I just want you to tell me that something's wrong with me, because then there's an antidote to fix it.
Yeah.
Right. Um, And similar to your journey, that's where you got to look inside and you're like, well, what am I going to do? What's next? And that I started therapy, and I started really like kind of down this, down this path of my own personal and professional growth. And I recognized a few things that I was doing that I probably shouldn't be doing. And I did take I think I led more into like self-help, like
Yeah.
into like body work. And, I'm a terrible meditator. So I'm not going to tell everybody to like go sit around at home. Like my brain is too active. But into things that I think were like good for my mind, body, and soul. And yeah, that was what happened. I think a lot of the time people think that when you burn out, you're like, then I got to take a month off and I got to figure my stuff out. I didn't have that luxury. I couldn't just stop working. So you got to figure out what you can do with what you've been given.
It's so funny that you say that, because I also acknowledge that so much of resetting was applying common sense, frankly. Hey, this is
Yeah.
not serving me. I don't know why I keep doing it. Like, stop. And hey, yeah, maybe eating 3 square meals and prioritizing going to bed at a regular time can actually help me. And that is something that I embraced in the very beginning of resetting and changing the way that I think.
Yeah.
What were some habits that you immediately were like, let's get rid of this, and what were some practices that you incorporated to fill that void?
So I immediately got rid of my phone. I know that sounds crazy. I didn't just like throw my phone out the window, but like I no longer sleep with my phone in my room, and I haven't for over a decade. My phone is in the living room. The ringer is on as loud as it possibly can be if somebody actually needs me in the middle of the night. But I have my do not disturb on. I've got the people, my family and friends that I need in the favorites. But that is like I will never sleep with my phone in my room again. It just does not serve you. It's the first thing that you grab. It is an unbelievably addictive tool that is both a blessing and a curse in all of our lives. I also got something now called a brick, which will actually like brick your phone, and certain social media, and it is. I'm like a walking ad for this thing. I love it so much, and I recommend it to everybody because to unbrick your phone, you have to like get up and like almost like an Apple Pay, like unbrick it. I really started focusing a lot more on like my physical health. Like I was working out more. I walk a lot. Like that is my like meditative state.
Mm.
So I really love walking. And then during the pandemic, well, I actually always had a rule that I was not allowed to ever drink by myself.
Mm.
So I'm in advertising. I'm in the creative industry. It is a very, it's an industry that is very heavily, there's a lot of drugs and alcohol. It's social. This is a great word.
Yeah.
It's a very social industry. Yeah, I've always had a rule that I'm not allowed to, we have alcoholism in our family. I'm not allowed to drink by myself. During the pandemic is when I actually stopped drinking completely. I was by myself all the time. So I was like, okay, so I guess this is not good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've never been really a big drinker, but to be honest, like, especially as a woman in her 40s, it does not serve you. It's not good for you.
Yeah.
So I'd rather sleep,
Yeah, me too.
you know?
How did like incorporating these new habits translate more on a broader scale? Because for me, it's like I changed little things, and then I was really able to make bigger decisions and bigger changes more seamlessly.
I think it gave me a little more clarity, but I also there's something very, and I think everybody who's turned 40 feels this, and I've heard everybody who turns 50 feels it even more. But I think there is something very powerful about moving into a next decade in your life. So when you're in your 20s to your 30s, your 30s to your 40s, your 40s to your 50s. And when I turned 40, I had this just like kind of gut feeling that I was like, I really need to start making decisions that feel selfish and that feel more aligned with what I love to do versus what society has always told me to do. And I'm fortunate because I really only have myself to take care of. So I don't have, I don't have the family that I am providing for at the moment. Um, but when I started making decisions that made me, this is going to sound very woo woo, but made me feel like much more aligned. I actually like things that I would really love to do started connecting in a better way. So I also really try to prioritize like when I know my best, like my most active and my most productive hours of the day are. Like I am best in the morning. So I really try to use that time wisely. But I also know after 4 o'clock, I'm kind of useless unless there's like something big or an event or something that I really need to focus on. So I think it's really tuning into you and like, what are the things that you love? Or if you don't know what you love, like, what are the things that you really hate?
Yeah.
And then like getting rid of those things, right? And then trying to figure it out as we go. But, I talk a lot about purpose and I talk a lot about, making sure that you're like on the right path. And is there a right path? Like if you don't have a purpose, can you still continue in life? Yes. Like you'll eventually figure it out. Like we have so much pressure right now on, well, I need to know why I'm here and what I'm doing and what the impact that I'm leaving and how can I be empowered to make more money and how can I manifest the best? And it's kind of like, we're dealing with a lot in the world right now. Like maybe we just like stay present and figure out like, how am I going to get through today that's making me feel the best I can today. So I try to go more daily than like big picture right now. It's a lot.
Quick pause, give me about 25 seconds. If this conversation is resonating with you, it's probably not by accident. Beyond the podcast, I work closely with a small number of individuals through my private coaching experience called the Core Shift Program. It's designed for people who are ready to break old patterns, gain clarity, and realign their lives with who they truly are, not just who they've been conditioned to be. Spots are intentionally limited. If this speaks to you, you can learn more and apply by visiting my website, www.adamvohra.com. All right, let's jump back in. No, I love what you said about just kind of keep going, because that was very much how it was for me. Yeah, sure, I got sober, but then what? And the things that brought me joy, quote unquote, previously, did they really? So for me, when I set out, it was really about throwing a lot of things at the wall and seeing what stuck, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that we say, in the recovery space, but like it's a principle that I carry kind of with any venture. Is one day at a time, and I think that's really important for me to stay grounded in where I am today and focus on making the best of what I have in the present, and also being 1% better than I was yesterday, and that stacks just like habits do, right? And the other thing you also shared was just like the pressure that we have right now on really, like, everyone needs to know exactly what they want to do, why they're doing it, and how it's feeding them. So you're bouncing back from, hitting a wall, essentially. You've incorporated some habits. You've moved. You've added some new healthy habits. When was it when you were just like, all right, like this is what actually feels right, and now I know how to do it purposefully?
I don't know if I'm even there yet, to be honest. I mean, there are moments where everything does feel very aligned, where everyone's like, I'm like, yeah, this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. I love what I'm doing. When I first started doing personal branding, I was like, this ties together my intuitive, self, my storytelling self, my strategic self. Like, this is all very fun. I'm working with very cool people. I still love to do it. I mean, it's still one of my favorite things to do. But I'm also thinking about, like, in the age of AI, like, what what can I do that AI can't? And how can I help people the most in that space? Right. And then also, if I were to die tomorrow, like, what are the things that is there anything that I'll regret that I haven't done? Like, I want to do that right now. So I'm, for people who know human design, I'm a manifesting generator. So I'm like the big idea person. I'm always like, oh, well, I'm going to try this and see if that works. Or let's try this. So I'm always thinking about, like, what is next? What is something that, like, is really lighting me up? Like, I always love to teach. I always, forever and ever. It's one of my favorite things to do. How does that manifest for me now? I don't know. I'm still trying to figure that out. I do a lot of workshops that I love. I've done one on personal branding. I've done one on intuitive intelligence. But I'm also like, what is that next thing? And I think that's both like a blessing and a curse, because I'm always thinking about, well, what else do I want to do?
Mm.
Like, like, nothing is ever enough. And that's something that I constantly have to um, kind of work through myself of, is this, I don't know, what, like, yeah, is the next thing worth really investing in,
Do you
A lot of
feel
the
that
time
you
it
have
is.
to? Do you feel that you have to work through it, or you have to reel that in and be like, hey, like what I'm doing right now is what I need to focus on?
I mean, both.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I really
There's
commend your
always something that
honesty.
I'm like, oh, I want to do that. That sounds like fun. Um, yeah, because there's always something else that I think at the moment lighting me up a little bit different. But then there's just yeah, there's stuff that I just also love to do. Like, I will always love to do PR, no matter what. It's strategic. It's always changing. There's crisis involved. There's storytelling. Like, it's kind of dramatic and fun and cool.
Yeah.
And yeah.
But it's funny because, all right, so nowadays everyone just kind of throws out that they're in PR. I think there's a lot
Oh, I know.
like, hey, what do you
Trust
do?
me.
Oh, I'm in PR.
Yeah.
So, and now I'm talking to an LA native who works in PR. And what about PR gives you that rush? I mean, you just kind of talked about it, but um, maybe paint a picture of like what PR actually is and how the field has been very just like,
Has it changed?
well, how does everyone tells me they're in PR. I'm like, are you though?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, PR has gone. It is all encompassing of everything. So it's encompassing of marketing and internal comms and social and storytelling. And so, to be fair, like, PR has gotten quite broad. Um, I I mean, a good example of kind of like the stuff that like that I still get like super excited about, which is also can be like very stressful. But the day of when the Capitol was stormed, I was actually working with uh, Signal, the messaging app, and I'm like, hey guys, like, what if people are using Signal? Like, what are we gonna what are we gonna do? And I mean, we had a very it's a small and mighty team there, but we had another team and we were doing a marketing campaign. I mean, it was like it it was one of those things that it was changing so quickly in real time
Mm.
and was also being used internationally at the same time. So there were countries that were like people were turning off Signal. We Jack ended up tweeting about it, and then Elon ended up tweeting about like that everybody should be using Signal, and it was like then it was wild. It was one of those things where I'm like, I I think I stress walked like 100 miles that week around town of just like who are the other crisis people that we need on this? Like how can we manage this? To be honest, it was when you have something that feels so like unprecedented, that's kind of where it's you get to get really strategic and be like, what is the plan? And if this doesn't work, what is the next plan? If this doesn't work, who do we connect with? Um, so I think that potentially is a good example of kind of where PR can go, but that's definitely crisis. And I also think in the world of influencers and AI and kind of like where PR is trending, if someone doesn't have it, if anybody's an entrepreneur in here, a CEO, if you do not have a crisis communications person on speed dial for the future for either you to say something wrong or something, I think the Coldplay concert, right? Great example of somebody who needed crisis comms immediately. Um, that's where I think that's where we're going and where everybody kind of needs to be prepared. But there's also just like, I mean, you can work in fashion, and this is like, how do we get influencers and how do we get the biggest celebrities to be wearing our product and or be wearing our fashion and be talking about it in the way that's aligned with messaging? Like PR is everywhere,
Yeah. I mean,
you
you're
know?
absolutely right. Like PR is everywhere. And like for me, I don't really have like a PR team as much as, I have, yeah, I just don't,
But you are your best PR team. Your
Yeah.
personal brand, I tell everybody this, like your personal brand is the foundation of your PR.
Mm. Can you
So
elaborate on that?
yeah, um, everyone is their best and worst PR, always. Um, and your personal brand should really always stand by, I like to say like kind of like a three-pillar approach. Like there's a personal thing, a professional thing, and then a passion thing that you can kind of like build your brand around. We don't want to be a thought leader on everything, right? Because when you do, you're diluting your brand. But your brand will always ladder up to your company's brand. So like my brand is Elizabeth Rosenberg. My company is the Good Advice Company. Um, the Good Advice Company would be nothing without me, right? Your podcast would be nothing without you.
Mm.
But your podcast has a little bit of a different kind of messaging than Adam does,
Yes. I mean, if
right?
I were to identify mine, I would say like, I am, myself and my sobriety journey is a personal side, the professional side is the coaching, and the passion part is really the podcast. The podcast has become a vessel for people to learn more about me, learn what I do, visit my website. But at the end of the day, um, it like that those would be the three pillars that you just outlined,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Um,
Yeah.
and I think I just learned something, frankly, by just kind of fleshing that out with you. But I do also see, like the importance of niching down, and because that was something that was told to me. I mean, the podcast is very broad. Like I have a PR professional here. Right before I had someone who worked in fitness. I've had athletes. I've had politicians. I've had women who are just thought leaders and have overcome obstacles with motherhood. So
Yeah.
it isn't niched down so much, the podcast, while I do feature a lot of folks who are in recovery, because that is something that I'm passionate about, right? I purpose can be found in so many different avenues, right? But
Right.
when it comes to me, the recovery space is where I dabble in because it's what I know best now. And I think that's something that I find to be really important with a lot of entrepreneurs that I meet and see, where it's like, hey, like, what are you an expert in? And how are you going to offer solutions to other people? And then using, some level of PR to help amplify, your microphone, whether it is connecting you with other opportunities like podcasts and media opportunities. And I, from like a small business, solopreneur, single proprietor LLC component, frankly, I don't, crisis control is really on you, right? But like, at the end of the day, like, because I think that's a lot of the people, I guess what I'm getting at is that's like a lot of the people who listen to this podcast, right? So so like the personal branding advice and understanding that PR is a huge part of it is something that like, like I'm just kind of unfolding as well, because I guess I am that like one-stop shop, but like it all starts with me.
Right. But let me break this down even more.
Okay.
The PR are the people that are in the room when you're not there, that are talking about you and knowing how to talk about you in the right way. Does that make sense? So like everybody who's been on your podcast can then be at a dinner, can then be, can be somewhere else and be talking about, oh, I was on this podcast and I was talking about this stuff and I met this amazing guy. And oh, the podcast is about purpose, but he also talks about these things. I'm amplifying your PR and your messaging without you being there, because you have a very clear narrative of what it is that you want to be talking about and what you want people to be saying about you. So your personal brand is that key messaging that's out and about in the world without you having to always be saying.
I love that.
Yeah.
I'm going to play the devil's advocate here, though, and ask you, what do you say to the entrepreneur, the thought leader, the business person who says, I'm going to be authentically myself and I don't really care what other people are saying about me, because I'll attract the people who I want to work with, and I'm okay with not being for everyone?
You don't have to be for everyone.
Yeah.
The world needs you too. I mean, it's really interesting. I think as I, obviously I come from the entertainment world, so I love following like the pop culture of all that stuff. And I think Hudson Williams is an amazing example of somebody who is, from Heated Rivalry, is somebody who speaks so clearly to his authentic truth when he's doing interviews and when he is on camera, that he doesn't really care what anybody else thinks. That's who he is. And the fandom has leaned into that in a way that I have truly never seen. As somebody who has done PR for over 20 years, 20 years ago, as a publicist, we would have never let that happen. Now I'm like, can we please have more of that? That is interesting. He has a point of view, he has something to say, and he's doing it in a way that feels authentic to him. Amazing. Cool. Let's do that.
Yeah.
So I definitely think there's this interesting trajectory changing. I think it's generationally. And I also think it is quite funny because people are like, oh, well, he's an Aquarius. That's very on brand for Aquarians. So I also think that as the world becomes more like accepting of our astrological zodiac signs as a part of our personality and part of our brand, I think that also will continue to ladder up in a fun way too. But who knows? But I think more of that. You don't have to be everything for everyone.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Well, I also think that like when it comes to PR now, like people aren't trying to clean up their messes because it's attracting more views, right? Like the more brazen shit that you say, the more hateful things that you say, and that's the culture that we live in: hate and fear and pain and belittling.
But I think that's the brand that someone's created. So if that's the brand that someone's creating, they're not going to apologize for that. I think when people apologize when someone gets caught in something that is outside of their brand identity or outside of the brand that they've created. The influencer market is honestly like where we see this the most.
Yeah.
Because brands have been made so niche and are so curated that when you find out something that somebody does in their real life, right, that's outside of the life that they've presented to us, it feels so crazy that they then have to speak on behalf of that. So yeah, we're at a very weird time right now. I also think too that the people that are the most outraged are the online warriors. And that's just like a fascinating thing too, is we're so concerned about everybody else's life and not necessarily taking account of our own.
Wow. I mean, that's a super powerful statement. And I concur, completely concur with, like, agree with that, because I could also relate to that. Comparison is a thief of all joy. You're looking at what Joe Schmo's doing. You're looking at what this celebrity is doing. A, you're not a celebrity. A, you're you, right?
Yeah.
And, bringing it back to, you and your journey, like, was there a moment where you had that, like, hey, like, I just got to do me and, like, stop, like, like, and just, like, focus on being the best version of myself in both professionally and personally, because it's easy to get distracted in that way.
Yeah. I mean, I obviously, as you've heard me talking, I have had a very, like, I've had a really great career.
Yes.
And it's been a very corporate career. I've always been a very intuitive child, always. I had my first reading with a psychic when I was 10. I did a book report on psychics, and my dad took me to go get a reading. And I really have, like, kind of leaned into that skill as I've gotten older, and I kind of came out of the spiritual closet in 20. I mean, everyone kind of knew about it in 2020, but, like, I talked about it on LinkedIn, which is, like, the wildest place to be talking. You're like, oh, hey, by the way. And I told everybody that I was an intuitive medium and Akashic record reader. And if you wanted to connect with people who'd passed, I can help you with that. And I kind of integrated it into my corporate practice. And it's interesting because when I told my burnout story, it went viral in Business Insider. Like, I was getting messages all over the world. That was, I think, a very scary thing to do, because I was like, everyone's going to think that I'm weak and that I can't, that I'm always going to burn out and that I'm always going to be this person. And then when I put out the next story that I was like, oh, by the way, you guys, I talk to dead people and I also do intuitive readings. Like, I thought everybody would be like, and no one was surprised. Everybody was like, oh, that feels like
that's kind of funny.
That feels on brand. And my business, like, tripled, because I then had this, like, kind of superpower that I could add into my work. Like, I had this intuitive intelligence that I could then really help people, like, kind of nail down the story they really wanted to tell. But it was always surprising to me that nobody was shocked. So I very much live as the authentic version of myself in the world. And I'm very unapologetic for it. But I also do it in a way that still straddles the messaging around kind of like how somebody would show up in corporate America. Because I think I'm not a very like overly spiritual, overly, like, kind of like woo-woo medium. Like, I still am very much entrenched in the corporate world, and I love that, because that's, again, like, I love my job. It's what I really enjoy doing. I just have this other thing that I do too. So I think there's a way to authentically come out as yourself, whatever that might look like for you, and do it in a way that kind of does this dance between both worlds versus just, this is who I am. Now, by the way, if that's what you want to do and you just want to be like, see ya, old life, this is the new me, I think you do you, because I think that clearly is what is needed. My kind of like plan, and has always been, is to just kind of like be both things, because I am both. And I'm very unapologetically that.
Quick break to shout out our sponsor, Relive the Moments. Founded by John Lim, they're redefining how we share memories. From tap-to-play photo frames to interactive coasters, they turn ordinary objects into powerful, shareable experiences. Perfect for weddings, events, or milestone moments. Relive, reconnect, reimagine. Check them out at www.relivethemoments.com. Now back to the show. I mean, I love that, and I like how you said came out of my spiritual closet. And because, like, I think once you tap into that spiritual component, it shows. Like I find that people who are very spiritually fit, they almost have this glow about the way they move about life, because it's just a power, right? It's a power. It's a force that is driving, who you are, and I mean, at least that's what spirituality is for me, right? And at the end of the day, like I can lean on that in moments in order to bounce back from any extreme, whether it's a positive emotion or a negative emotion.
Yeah.
Leaning into the spirituality really allows me to rebalance myself and get myself on better footing. When you talk about the work you do as a medium, I'd like to dig into that. I actually had someone on the pod. Did I connect you with her, Cammie?
No.
Okay, well I will.
Great.
Who does similar work, and I'd love to talk about like your approach and the problems that you're able to solve for the people who you work with.
So I just want to, before we even get into that, I definitely want to say that like when I think about spiritual health, and I love that you said spiritual fit, because I think we're talking about the same thing. It's kind of like whatever that higher power is for you that you're connecting to. And it could be through meditation, it could be through tarot cards, it could be through, Reiki, it could be through whatever it is that it could be walking, it could be doing the dishes, it could be whatever your connection is. What I
It
believe
could very well be church for some
it,
people.
it could be, yeah, it could be religion. Exactly. It's not for me, but it could be for somebody else. I think of that like kind of higher power that we connect to. When I work with my clients, and my clients have been very religious, have no religious affiliation, are every race, gender, everything that you could. I have everything you could possibly think of. I have worked with, and I'm so grateful for that, because I think yeah, I can't do the same thing in PR. So I love that I have that opportunity to work with kind of everyone. I don't do readings for people who are like, I am in crisis and I need to make a decision today. I am not a magic 8 ball. And I think it is actually the worst time to see an intuitive, because this is actually when you need to lean into your own intuition and be like, what feels right for me? I need to make that decision according to yourself, not according to anything else. It's always wild to me when someone's like, is my boyfriend going to break up with me, or are they going to propose? And I'm like, oh, babe, like, if this is the question that you have, like you need to tune into your relationship.
Yeah.
Don't ask the guys.
He's breaking up with you.
This is the wrong time for that.
I'm just kidding.
Oh my God. Probably not. But I like to use the Akashic records, and I like to use these readings just to give kind of like a roadmap of like, a lot of people want to ask about their kids and make sure their kids are okay. I love doing readings for pregnant women of like, this is the vibe that the baby is giving me. Like, let's see what's going on with that. I've done readings for parents who've lost children and have had them come through. So I can't tell you exactly what's going to happen in any reading, because I have no idea. With my clients, I also do all of my readings over Zoom. I don't do any of them in person anymore, because I found that when people are in their own space and have their own energy, they actually they feel less, I think, less nervous. I tend to be the person who, if like you've never had a reading, I'm a really good like first out of the gate person to get a reading with. I don't know why. I think it's because I just sound like this. It'd be like a regular conversation, right? It's not like there's anything crazy happening. But I feel like whatever you need to hear in that reading is normally what you hear. And I will only do a reading for people once every 6 months. So I'm not somebody that's like, okay, we'll come back and we're going to like, I'm not that person who's trying to get money out of you to take a course for like, to learn how to manifest, or to learn how to do, you know what I mean? Or like, that's just not my vibe. I'm so grateful to be able to use this skill, and I call it a skill and not a gift, because I believe we all have access to it in different ways. But I'm so grateful to be able to use this skill to help heal people who need some kind of help or healing. And I don't ever want to take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Or the people that I'm working with,
Well, it's funny because there are a lot of skeptics out there, and I was very skeptical of different spiritual healing pathways, but I think something that was really essential for me was almost having like a gift of desperation in a sense for a quest
Hmm.
for answers, but then also opening up my mind and being willing to
Yeah.
just kind of surrender a truth to someone and seeing what they see. Because, I think a lot of the times when people start to trudge towards that spiritual door, it's because they've tried everything else.
Yeah. And I know that kind of like in the bio, you said that I had launched something called Chief Spiritual Officer. And part of that is I actually believe that everybody has some kind of form of spiritual health that they're connecting into. And that's what I mean by that. Of like, why are we keeping this all in the shadows? Like everything that's old is new again.
Mm.
So let's just start talking about this out loud. Like I work with an acupuncturist who also does energy work on me, or I read tarot cards every morning before I get into the office, or I really connect into my intuition, or I journal and I channel while I'm doing things. Like this should all just be we should be comfortable talking about this out loud. And part of I believe my like lot in life and part of my purpose is to help like kind of destigmatize that in a way. So there's this kind of community that I've been creating, and I hope that more people will hear this and feel comfortable of that role that they have in their own life as well.
Yeah. And I love the list of things that you do in order to ground yourself spiritually. And I think that looks different for everybody. And I think that's one of the most important things when talking about spirituality, is to understand that what my spiritual health and my spiritual habits and my spiritual toolbox is to me may look completely different for you. And
Yeah.
I think that's such a way to invite people to embark on spiritual journeys of themselves because, for me, it saved my life, frankly. I owe
Yeah.
myself to the work that I do with my spirituality. And, you talked about spiritual health, spiritual fitness. I also understand that, like going to gym, like eating healthy, like going to a therapist for the mental component, the spiritual component needs to be worked on a daily basis. I was literally just talking about it with, a guest who recorded earlier. So I guess today's just a very spiritual day for me. But
I love that for you.
no, I love it though, because um, that kind of funnels into the whole theme of the podcast. I think spirituality plays a tremendous role into um, finding a purpose, living in purpose, and maintaining that purposeful path.
Yeah.
So let's just kind of move in that direction now, and talk about the relationship that spirituality and purpose have.
I mean, I think everyone's purpose is based in kind of like love, capital L, right? Humanity, all of us together connection. Um, and how we can make some kind of impact in the world. When we connect with whatever, again, that spiritual tool is that we use, I think what it does is it gives us clarity. I also think too with purpose can be very tricky because it is a word that I think brands have tarnished,
Mm.
right? Um, your purpose for what work looks like can be one thing. Your purpose in life can be something different. I think it doesn't have to be super specific. I also think it can change with where you are on whatever path you're on. Like I really strongly believe that it's like you don't get on the wrong path. I'm like it's just a different path of learning the same lesson you're going to learn. You're just going to learn it in a different way. So we all have free will too to make whatever decisions that we want to make. So when it comes to spirituality, I just think we need to remember that that definition is personal and is something that can evolve. Our purpose is very similar. And you don't need to like yell your purpose out loud. And if you don't know your purpose, like borrow somebody else's and see if that one fits on, like see what happens and then evolve where you need to. But we get so caught up in, I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know why I'm here. Always start with like, what brings you joy?
Yeah.
And then go from there versus feeling so lost. It can be very all consuming when it happens.
Yeah, I think it's so important to like lean into like what brings you joy, because if you continue to do the things that bring you joy, then you'll also,
You're like,
you
oh, I found my purpose along the way.
yeah, well, you'll find your purpose
Yay.
along the way. But I think like when
Yeah.
you're living purposefully, you're also loving yourself. And, and a lot of the times, I mean, so many times when I talk to people on the podcast or just day to day and we're having conversation, a lot of it has to do with, like how they look at themselves and how much they love themselves, but also more importantly, they love themselves more. They love themselves more when they're positively impacting other people. And I think
Always.
that correlates directly with purpose. So, when talking about purpose though, like, what advice would you give to somebody on that journey of finding purpose?
Don't take it too seriously.
Mm.
I mean, honestly, like get out of your regular routine and try something new. I mean, one of the things that I did, I had a whole year where every month I did something that like, in quote unquote, scared me. So I got a tattoo. I did a boudoir shoot. I don't know why, but I did. It
I
was
don't know
for
what that
me. It
is.
was super fun. You can look it up later. I took trapeze lessons. Like every month I was like, I'm going to do something that like I have never done before. And I have to say, I look back on that and it was like the most fun year of my life.
Mm.
Like it was just, I think we get so caught up, and it was, to be honest, like most of it was very inexpensive. Like it was the days of like the Groupons. So I was really like living my best Groupon life. But there's a lot of free things that we can do in the world that also I think like just takes us outside of our comfort zone. So that's what I always tell everybody. I'm like, just do something totally different that you've never done before and see how that works for you.
Mm.
So, and that was, I mean, I will always look back, and that was one of my best years ever. I just had and I had come from, a job that was really terrible to a breakup that was terrible. And I was just like in dire straits, and I'm like, I got to mix stuff up. We got to try something new.
I love
It was
that.
great.
Yeah. I know we're running close to the end, but one question I ask everybody is, do you think you found your purpose or your purpose found you?
Oh, I think my purpose found me.
Mm.
It was, I was definitely hit over the head with it. As much as I wanted to like push away kind of all the spiritual stuff I was doing, as much as I wanted to just continue to like climb the corporate ladder in the best way possible, the universe continued to be like, nope, your path is over here. You have to go this way.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So it definitely, it continues to do that in very interesting and weird ways. And I just have surrendered at this point.
I love that.
It's the easiest way.
No, I love that.
Yeah.
And I'm really, really grateful for you taking the time. Elizabeth Rosenberg, if you can just let my audience know whether you have anything upcoming, how they can reach you and engage with you.
Yeah.
Or any message, parting message that you'd like to leave.
The best way to find me is on LinkedIn. I am like the unhinged poster on there who kind of says all the things that you're thinking. It is the place where I am most authentically myself. And you can find me at thegoodadvicecompany.com and chiefspiritualofficer.com. And there's going to be some big changes on that platform coming soon that I'm very excited about.
Elizabeth Rosenberg, LA based. If any of you guys are out in LA listening to this, definitely connect with her. If anybody wants to connect with her, feel free to reach out to me, and I'd be happy to connect you with her directly. Couple things I want to shout out. Claudio here at Kai Visions, we do virtuals now. So feel free to reach out to me if you are looking to launch podcasts, create marketing material, event coverage here in the New York metro area, and I'd be happy to connect you with them. I want to thank our sponsor, Relive the Moments, John Lim. Feel free to reach out to me if you're looking for any NFC type technology to incorporate into your marketing, your events, whatever you might need it for. I'd be happy to connect you with them as well. Last but not least, I'd like to invite you to visit my website, www.adamvohra.com. There you'll find the landing page for the podcast, but additionally, you'll find information about my recovery coaching. If you or anybody that you know might need some help, feel free to reach out to me and I'd be happy to talk to them. So you can visit my website, www.adamvohra.com, or on Instagram at adamvohra_. And last but not least, I'm super grateful for everybody who continues to show up for this podcast, share, listen, engage, all the comments. I'm super grateful for it. And that's how this community continues to grow. Thank you so much, folks. And until next time.
Before you go, I just want to say thank you for spending this time with me. If this conversation resonated, know that the work doesn't have to stop here. I work with a small number of individuals through my private coaching experience, the Core Shift program. And I also host intimate in-person events called the Purpose Panels, where these conversations come to life through community and connection. To learn more about coaching or upcoming events, visit www.adamvohra.com. Until next time, stay intentional.